So today on Time for Anything, we are talking about doing good. What does that even mean?
Well, if we're going based off the definition, it's to act virtuously, especially by helping others. It's also making a helpful contribution to a situation.
So essentially, according to Google, doing good means doing good deeds.
Right.
Yeah.
It's action based.
But there is a step before that, right? If you have to act virtuously, you already have to have defined morals and know what good means to even act virtuously.
Right.
Yeah, you can't even do good unless you have, or quote unquote, do good unless you have a concept of what doing good is, like you're saying.
Actually, now that I think about it, you could definitely accidentally do something good that you didn't even realize was
It could get
beneficial until you actually see the benefit happening and you're like, wait, I did good there? You could just be kind of going blindly in whatever action you're doing, regardless of what the outcome may be, and it just so happens it's a good outcome, so you're like, yeah, I did good.
Well, maybe this is a good segue into how much does intent matter for doing good? You know? To do good, should I have to purposely be doing good things, or does intent not really matter and just the consequence?
Well, this is kind of what we got into when we did our first demo episode on this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh my gosh, how many
Months.
forevers ago? But yeah, that's kind of what we got into, was the whole thing of what was the example? It was some kid who was trying to do a good thing for his friend and then accidentally ended up killing their dog.
Yeah.
So then it's, well, the action resulted in the death of an animal, but the intent was there to do a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Yeah, it's
Well,
tricky.
it's tricky.
Right? Because you should feel remorse for killing your friend's dog.
Right.
But if you didn't mean to do it, then you're not necessarily a bad person. Although some people would say you are.
Yeah. I spilled marinara sauce on a good friend of mine at Applebee's a couple weeks ago, and it was by pure accident. I grabbed the plate, and the plate was super slick. Here I am making excuses already, like 30 seconds in the story. But it just slid. I like pulled it down, and the sauce slid off and just landed right into his lap. Like it was just marinara sauce all in his scrubs.
You got lost in the
And
sauce.
I got lost in the sauce. I felt so bad and I knew in my heart that it was a pure accident. Like I did not intend to marinara this guy.
To
Marinate this guy. But it just so happened that was the consequence. And again, I did and should have felt remorse, because even if it's an accident, it's still your fault.
Right, because... Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just thinking, in that situation, though, it's an accident, right?
Yes.
You didn't even intend to do anything with the marinara. You were
Right.
maybe just moving the plate. But in some instances, you intend to do a good thing. You intend to throw your friend a birthday party, and as a consequence, their dog dies.
Yeah, like
Right.
maybe the dog eats cake and
yeah, whatever it
gets
is.
into
They
whatever
eat a
or
plate of
something
cookies, and there was too much chocolate for the little pipsqueak dog it was. I don't know.
yeah.
But and in that situation, it's also an accident, right? You didn't mean to kill the dog,
Of course.
but the intention behind all of it was this good thing, this thing that you wanted to do for your friend, that you thought was a good thing, and
On a karmic scale, I feel like it's just kind of null and void. It's like you didn't. It wasn't your intention, so you're not going to get negative karma for the outcome of something that wasn't your intention.
I can get behind that because personally, I'm a believer in the karma scale. So I'd like to think that if your intent is to do something quote unquote good, or let's rephrase it this way. If your intent is to do something that benefits others in a positive way, and the outcome ends up being something that hurts other people, as long as your intent was pure in helping others, there shouldn't be yes, Derek, it's exactly like you just said. You don't get karma, but because you did something quote unquote bad in the end, but your intent was to do something quote unquote good, so it just kind of, null and void. It just negates.
So I guess my problem, and we'll talk about karma here, my only problem with karma is that requires objective morality. And,
Right.
Like, there has to be karma points assigned to specific things that
Yeah.
they give you stuff based on your actions, your consequences, your intents. But that has to be objective.
Something or someone is grading you. So
Right.
it's up to the discretion of either that entity or the working system of entities to judge whether or not you've done the right thing.
And I would argue, as a society, generally, we believe in subjective morals. You know, not
That's tricky though.
not talking about people that are devoutly religious, but
But
even
many
then,
people
some
will say
people-
killing is wrong no matter what.
yeah, but that's subjective because some people will also say that killing is not wrong. There are cultures, Islam, there's this whole mercy killing concept where you would kill a member of your family for bringing that family shame.
Yeah.
There was a big thing about it in Texas. Some guy and his son killed the wife and the daughter because something happened. I'm not sure. But obviously they went to jail, as they should have. But for them, that was the right thing. That was a good thing to do.
I can see your point. I can see where you're
I
going.
like to think that on a general basis. So like, it also depends. It's very dependent on the observer, as well as to say, hey, this is good or bad. Just because, as Americans, we are defined by our American set of morals and ethics.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you are an American and you don't subscribe to those moral and ethics, you are nonetheless going to be defined by the system that you live in
Yeah.
socially.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there could be, for example, Saudi Arabians, and actually they started to let women drive now in Saudi Arabia, which was
That's
a big step for them. Huge
yeah.
step for them. Obviously, most of the rest of the world disagrees with their beliefs towards women and their place in society, but to themselves, they feel as though their religion and their way of life has justified it.
Yes. Which is why it's hard to say that morals are not subjective. Partly because I wholeheartedly believe that morals are just a human concept that we've made up. It's not something that is, set in nature. A lion doesn't necessarily have a moral code. So it's hard to say that morals are not subjective when looking at all the differences in morality throughout cultures on this planet.
I think there's... Sorry,
No,
go ahead.
no,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Crap. I was just thinking the typical example that you would always hear is the Aztec sacrifices. And because then you're thinking, well, in our society, that would just be inherently wrong. You can't just kill people like that because you think that that's what you're supposed to do. But to them, it was doing the right thing. It was
Absolutely.
doing good. It was doing a good thing. So yes, that's where subjectivity comes into play.
But they also thought that that was objectively good.
Correct.
So it's easy in the scope of your own culture, religion, society, whatever, to say that my morals, my ethics from my society are objective. Because they are. They're binding for the people living there. They're objective in the scope of that community. But once you look at how many different systems of morals people have, it's hard to say that it's not just subjective.
Correct.
Right. I think that there definitely exists a subjective interpretation of an objective higher moral base that, like, we all can get behind. That's very agreeable to humanity, not just cultures and different cultures, but just the idea of humanity. Because if we had, like, let's say we had no basis for killing, and there was just a gray ground on killing in general, and it wasn't a prosecutable thing in certain circumstances, people would just be killing all the time for no reason. Or would they?
That's the thing is
This is, I think, something we actually talked about when we were meeting for this. We're talking
potentially.
about killing. No, so anyway.
No, well, yeah, because
Because it's pretty inherently understandable. Hey, don't kill people because nobody's trying to kill you.
but I almost wonder if there would just be a transitional phase in which, let's just say, for sake of conversation, tomorrow, and obviously this would never happen, but if tomorrow the United States government said killing someone is allowed as long as it fits these set parameters, okay?
So purge.
I can understand what you're saying, but I'm saying all the time. All the time,
Oh, okay.
any day, whenever you want, within these set parameters, meaning I don't know. Like they shot your dog or whatever. Okay, well now you're allowed to kill them. Something like that, for example.
Is it the
I
right
think-
thing to do to defend yourself? Let's say
Well,
your life is
Stand your ground.
stand your ground.
if your life is in danger.
if your life is in danger, that's one thing. Okay, I don't want to go into that, but I guess I'm saying
But on a higher objective basis, it's wrong to take that
It's
life.
still taking a life, which
Yes.
a lot of religions have said, you can't do that.
I guess I'm just thinking to go back to what you said, Derek, everyone would be killing all the time. I think there would be this transitional phase in which the laws would be set and then everyone would go ballistic for a while, but it would eventually just normalize and level out because people would eventually be born into a culture in which that is the norm.
Yes.
So then those people would have a better understanding and much more responsibility with it.
Well, people
compared
still
to-
die even with laws in place. People
Well,
still
yeah,
kill other
that's
people and
true.
murder
Yeah,
regardless of the law.
There would
I,
still be anomalies.
I draw a connection here to the social contract. Rousseau and Hobbes, the social contract, saying once you're in, I guess, a community of people, right, you're depending on each other to survive, you won't be killing other people. But outside of that, in the state of nature, then you're obviously going to kill people. I'm going to kill you and take your coconuts because I want your coconuts. And in that situation, that's a good thing because it's self-reliance. I think a better example would be if your wife is dying and she really needs medicine from this pharmacy, but you don't have the money or the insurance to obtain it, is it okay to steal it to save your wife's life? Some people would say, no, that's stealing, that's wrong, that's not okay ever. Some people would say, well, yeah, you're saving a life, and stealing, let's say, $100 worth of medicine when they really charge you like $1,000, that's okay because you're saving a life and the business doesn't really take a loss.
I think we can all agree that there's definitely an ambiguity that comes with the concept of morals.
Right.
Absolutely.
So there's this book that we're all familiar with, My Big Theory of Everything by Thomas Campbell. And his whole idea is that there is an objective morality. There is karma. There is a set gradient of how you should be living your life. And if you're doing certain things, there is objectively good and there is objectively bad. So I'm just going to read this quote here. It's a little lengthy. It's from page 349 of My Big Theory of Everything, the complete series. He says, choices made in pursuit of getting what we want produce occasional material success, anxiety, stress, pain, frustration, emptiness, insecurity, and unhappiness, while choices made to express unconditional love produce all types of success, peace, tranquility, confidence, satisfaction, fulfillment, happiness, and joy. Given these results, the goal should be obvious, yet we can only express the quality we have earned. What he means in the end there when he says the quality we have earned is the quality of our karma. He's essentially saying you can only do what your consciousness is aware of, what your consciousness is, how it's evolved, and how knowledgeable your consciousness is of the inner workings of the system.
Right. Because
So there are objective morals as far as he's concerned.
I think as a species, it's pretty straightforward that morals provide the framework to affect your ethics onto the world, to take your standard or behavior of beliefs and what they define as right versus wrong, and then to affect it by basically utilizing your ethics to make decisions in the world is how we operate on a fundamental level. And then you have the variation of your cultural morals and beliefs and maybe the other subjective things that you've been... It's a nature versus nurture thing, yet again. It kind of comes to that macro idea of what is already hardwired in our brain to do versus what we learn to do.
So from that My Big Toe quote, I draw a pretty strong connection. Can I see that again? Can somebody pull that up?
Yeah.
I draw a pretty heavy connection with utilitarianism.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of doing everything to like benefit other people and make the whole system function.
Yeah.
The best
So-
possible outcome.
Right,
Correct.
so I
Doesn't
wouldn't say
necessarily
utilitarianism
mean- yeah.
says always do everything for other people, where
That would be
Thomas
altruism.
Campbell, yeah, that's kind of altruism. Thomas Campbell kind of draws a connection between both altruism and utilitarianism, saying that unconditional love produces all types of success, peace, tranquility, confidence, satisfaction, fulfillment, happiness, and joy. Right? The more that you give to other people, the more that you will be returned. And that's exactly what altruism is also.
Yes.
Right? The more that you give and the more that you help others, the better your life will be.
Right, because the selflessness reaps rewards. I just think about people like the Merricks. And I have so much respect for them as people because they are always doing things for other people. I mean, look at the time that you and I were idiots and drove your Jeep into the woods back there and got it stuck. And he comes out and he brings a backhoe. He had to use a backhoe to get James's Jeep out of the woods. And he wasn't even going to charge us. He was just, you got it stuck in my woods. I'll just pull it out. Fine. Yeah. And James ended up paying him because he did a thing for us.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say. Because otherwise I would have to call... I mean, AAA said they wouldn't do it. But I'd have to call somebody.
And then again,
so
I guess...
Either way, it was...
I guess it's a little different because it's on his property. But they do so many things. And I think because of my belief system, I legitimately think that they are constantly rewarded because of what they do. They are always doing missions work and doing things for the church and for other people. They're constantly
I sort of have
trying to help
a
others.
cynical take on this, and I don't think it's the case with the Merricks. I love the Merricks. But couldn't somebody realize that, wow, when I do things for other people, things are returned for me? So then their intent isn't to do things for other people.
Right.
Their intent is to get a return for doing things for other people.
I can see that.
So I think that the issue is the current the current paradigm that we operate under in our society. It's a materialistic kind of reward system. Whereas the positive benefits that you receive from utilitarianism are not always tangible. There are benefits that are intangible, such as the feelings that Thomas Campbell describes.
Joy,
fulfillment,
happiness.
satisfaction, happiness,
But it still
peace,
comes back
tranquility.
to, then isn't my intention in helping others to feel tranquility and peace and fulfillment?
Yeah.
And isn't that selfish?
Well, okay. So here's where we get to this whole... I call it the whole burning car thing, whatever. James and I had class with Julia's senior year for psychology. Or I guess it was my senior year, James's junior year.
Mm-hmm.
And his whole thing was... I don't remember if he mentioned this or what. Anyway, the circumstances. But it was this example of, does anyone actually do anything purely for other people? Or can you entirely do something selflessly? And then I think about, maybe this was something that he mentioned, was this example of, I'm driving down the highway. I see a car that has just crashed and is now on fire. I don't have anywhere to be. And I know in my mind that I could stop and help this person. Mm-hmm. So do I stop and help the person because I'm being completely selfless and I want to help them out of the vehicle? Or do I do it because I know that if I drove by and didn't help them, I'd feel guilty, right? And think of it down to simple things. James's grandmother just gave me new cups for Christmas. Does she do it because she wants me to feel joy, or is it because she would feel good giving me cups? I'm being cynical in a way, like you just mentioned, but yeah,
But that is a perfectly viable view on things.
right? Does it?
No,
I'd like to think that people really do things selflessly, consciously, because maybe in the back of their mind it's for selfish reasons, but maybe it's not a conscious thought. So maybe the thing is that if it's consciously selfless, that's what matters. I truly don't know.
I feel like I've felt personally the feelings that Thomas Campbell's describing, and at least based on how I process those feelings, that is what brings me happiness. I don't know if that is the truth or it's just my truth, but I know that I subscribe to these ideas because I've seen the results. I've, quote, tasted the pudding, as he says.
As he always says, yeah. I've definitely noticed that with the relationship with my mother is I've just decided to be, because her and I growing up, I mean, you guys both know, we're just constantly at war with each other for no reason because I was young and naive, and then we're just feeding off each other.
Well,
and
it was there were two sides, that was for sure.
Yeah, there's a whole mess of things, and deciding to instead show her love and understanding, and I think that's something Dad did so good with her. Is Dad brought out the best side of Mom. Mom was flourishing when Dad was around because Dad knew how to help her suppress maybe her short temper and then bring out the things like her love with cooking and doing that sense of community and spreading joy and doing things like that. And that's what I have decided that I want to bring out in her by doing the same thing to her, is showing her that love and understanding and compassion and us working with each other and understanding each other. And now we can actually have conversations. I go over there to help her with things around the house. It's just this give and take.
Right.
I feel like just by putting myself aside and saying, I'm not gonna think about the way that she's treating me, I want to think about the way I want to treat her, has done wonders for our relationship.
Absolutely. I think recognizing that in a different circumstance, a friend of mine is really going through it with one of her best friends, and her friend is incredibly sick. It's just been diagnosed with a couple personality disorders, and
Wow.
I really... She's
That's
causing a lot of damage
That's rough.
in her
That's hard.
circle,
Yeah.
this person. And it's not okay. It's not good. She is decreasing her karmic value for sure. She's breaching a lot of trust that has been built with her closest friends and has essentially ostracized herself through her own toxic behavior. Yet, I find it a lot more realistic to pity her at the end of the day because
of her multiple personality
right.
disorder.
And my dad has struggled with personality disorders, and I see that the effect that it has on them, and it's really debilitating. It's almost like you can't function at certain capacities in society because your hardwiring in your brain is twisted, and it's really tragic. It doesn't excuse any of the terrible things that she's done. In fact, and not in the slightest, I think it's those terrible things that she needs to learn from through acceptance and self-forgiveness.
Yeah, and I mean, it almost goes back to what we said in another episode where some people do just have these chemical imbalances, these things with their brain that make them be a certain way. And you can take it at face value and blame them and say, well, they're at fault for who they're being. And I can understand because the way a person's acting is how they're acting. But then you have to understand that they're acting that way because that's how their brain works. So yeah, I agree with you. It's she. With any disorder you have, it's important to learn how to mediate that disorder and overcome that. But that sounds incredibly difficult. Having to, because she can't control sometimes how she's being to other people.
And it's easier said than done, the idea to pump the brakes of your train of thought and to catch yourself in a moment and say,
how can she?
I am wrong.
How can she?
Because people don't want to admit that they are wrong. People want to deny culpability just as a natural response because we've also made doing bad such a taboo that, and this is kind of this double-edged sword with doing good, is that we've made doing bad such a taboo thing that it really eats people alive and erodes them when they know that they have done harm to others and they can't forgive themselves. Well, you have to. I mean, that is another crucial step into not only making yourself a better person, but making the world a better place. And a great parallel to that is the idea of the frame of thinking in Nazi Germany, for example.
Before we move on, I
Sure
just
thing.
want to establish two sort of premises. I want to establish two premises that we've kind of talked about here. First is doing good can mean simply doing good deeds, like pulling over and pulling somebody out of a burning car. But doing good can also mean showing unconditional love to those around you and to anybody you meet and interact with in your life.
Doesn't have to be a tangible thing, like you said earlier.
Right.
Derek. Like a lot of these
Absolutely.
results aren't tangible, so a lot of the good actions aren't tangible either.
Yeah,
Exactly.
The tangible results will come over time, but that takes... It's way harder to manifest tangible results than it is to manifest immediate positive results within consciousness. Mic drop. Just right there.
Sure. Yeah. No, I get what you're getting at. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
doing good can mean doing good deeds, can mean unconditional love. And whether you believe in karma or not, which I won't even share my personal views on that because, frankly, I don't know my personal views on that.
Right. Still figuring it out, and that's okay to admit too.
Well, yeah, because some people just don't believe in karma at all, but that's not a problem.
And maybe
But either way, it doesn't matter because
Because either way, you should be quote unquote doing good.
that, and also your ethical code in your society is something that you have to subscribe to and follow to live in that society. And beyond that, sort of getting into this example of Nazi Germany, your moral code can sometimes
Conflict with that.
conflict,
Yes.
but also prioritize. You can prioritize your personal moral code over the ethics of a group.
Right.
So this is directly related to this Nazi Germany example. As an example, a soldier that is, let's say, running, he's a guard in a concentration camp for Jewish people in Nazi Germany. Actually, a better example, he's hunting down Anne Frank or other Jewish families that are hiding out in Germany.
The guy from Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah.
That's
That
amazing film.
Au revoir, Shoshana.
That is a really good film.
Dude, so good. Are you
It's based on
wearing
a,
shoes in this building?
Based on a true story too. There's like a documentary about the true Inglorious Bastards. There
Really?
was this actual group of
Wait, I didn't even know that was a
an
thing.
actual group of Jewish American soldiers that just went there and fucked up the Nazis.
Dude, that's
Sorry.
awesome.
Yeah,
Nazi Germany
so the
comparison.
soldier that is searching for Jewish families hiding out, like Anne Frank's family. Great book. It's not actually a book. It's her diary, Anne Frank's diary. Amazing read. That a soldier that, let's say, finds a Jewish family hiding in a German home. They, under the ethics of their society, should be apprehending that family and putting them in a concentration camp, if not just killing them on spot. Right? But let's say that their moral code, which this didn't happen very often in Nazi Germany, Their moral
Especially because
code,
if you decided to do what you're about to say, you'd just get shot anyway.
right?
But continue.
Their moral code says, well, these people are innocent. This is wrong for me to either kill them or send them to their death. It's not something that I personally am okay with doing. That person is doing a bad thing because they are breaking away from society's ethical guidelines of, in this example,
Gosh, I see your point.
hey, all Jews are bad, they are evil, you have to kill them. This person is doing a bad thing in the scope of their
In
society.
the scope of their society, correct.
But they're also doing a good thing because they're being altruistic. They are sacrificing, potentially, probably,
Themselves.
sacrificing their life for the lives of, let's say, 3 or 4 or 5 people that they don't know and that society has deemed as evil.
I
Right.
truly wonder how many Nazi soldiers didn't kill when they quote unquote should have based on orders.
So, not a lot. It happened more at the beginning of all of it, and then those people pretty much got weaved out.
Probably, yep.
I was actually over the past couple of days watching a few documentaries on World War II,
That's awesome.
and I was really interested in the broad scale idea of German psychology post World War I and the events that led up to the rise of Hitler and everything else. And that's been pretty much understood. The Treaty of Versailles screwed over the German people and basically laid blame onto them, even though Austria
It
started
was all
the
Austria.
war.
It was Austria.
And
But
it
the
created-
Germans in World War One shouldn't have done what they were trying to do. They were really trying to land grab.
But
and-
again, we go back to this base understanding of moral principle and what's right, doing good, and what should have been done is Germany and Austria should have been punished, of course, but they shouldn't have been dismantled
Typical.
as a country
Yeah.
because they're still people, and there were a lot of people just living as civilians within these countries that ultimately suffered because of the decisions of a few oligarchs.
Mhm.
So,
But they were trying to implement a democracy,
mhm.
which was not the best move there. We won't get into that here because that's not what this episode is about.
Right,
But
but there's still this. I'm sure there were Germans that were executed because they failed to follow orders
Yes.
Yeah.
given by Hitler. But the reason why Hitler is such an anomaly, and we talk about Nazi Germany so much when it comes to morals and ethics, is because it defies logic. It defies our basic understanding as humans as to like how to treat each other. Yet time and time again, same, different side of the same coin, you can go back in history. A common thing that's skipped over when it comes to World War II talk and the powers that be at that time is the amount of people that Stalin killed.
yeah.
His own people.
Yeah, wait, what's up with that? Why, didn't Stalin end up just being
He killed-
responsible for killing more
He
people?
killed more people.
And then people
His
focused-
own
Even-
people.
I think, I could be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure the Japanese even killed more people in concentration camps than Hitler did.
Wow.
It was just Hitler was the evil in the West, and that's what the West cared about. The
Yeah.
West didn't care about Japan. They didn't really care about Russia. Well, they did. They did care about Russia. Russia, the reason that Stalin got away with it was because he was helping the Allies fight against Germany. It was
Oh.
only until after World War II and in the Cold
Right.
War era that we were like, holy shit, that guy is not a good guy at all.
So just a quick Google search on how many people did Stalin kill. 20 million.
That's insane. That is
yeah.
so many people.
20 million died in labor camps, forced collectivization, famine, and executions in total.
Ridiculous.
So it really, none of it's justified. None of it is correct. It all comes back to this idea of human greed, of this primal thing that occurs with humans when they gain massive amounts of power, is that they abuse it to the benefit of them and their suitors, as opposed to taking care of their masses. within their country.
Sorry, just to the Japanese killed 10 million people in their concentration camps.
Right.
The Germans killed about 375,000. This can't be right. That can't be right.
It can't be right.
That can't be right.
That's probably prisoners of war,
Yeah,
as
I think you're
opposed
right.
to like an ethnic cleansing count. Like it's not a total count. The bottom line is, it doesn't matter what angle
6
you look
million.
at.
6
it's
million
this-
Holocaust.
It's the same issue of this greedy, hate-driven mentality that humans equate to success.
I just wonder if karma and reincarnation are real. Stalin came back as an ant.
Exactly.
And he'll just relive life as an
I
ant.
think flies
500
are
times.
flies are definitely the punishment for the worst people that.
Like common fruit flies.
Mm-hmm.
Literally
Mhm.
eat, poop, and die.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah, or a dung beetle.
Now,
But dung beetles live longer.
to
Mhm.
kind of... Sorry, go ahead.
Well, live and
I'm
shit a
just
little longer.
thinking about karma and reincarnation. If as a person I live 80 years and I get reincarnated as a fruit fly and live a week, am I like what? How does that scale? What is that ratio there?
In my
I live
mind...
1 week. How does my karma score get affected as a fly for that 1 week? And do I go up or down after that week?
I could just imagine that if you're that simple as an organism, it would break down to how efficient you are as a being.
So you couldn't
Potentially.
really get a negative score though.
No, but I think that in my belief, the whole point of living as quote unquote simple organisms is to give you a basic understanding of what it's even like to operate an organic vehicle. For example, when Derek sat down in front of Forza, I didn't put him in an F1 vehicle right away because he just can't, it's too complex. He can't handle it right away. I couldn't handle it right away.
Mhm.
You have to start out with a slower vehicle that shifts slower and is more manageable to control before you're put into a vehicle that has way more systems put in place. So in my mind, when you are a new consciousness bit, you are put into entities that are simpler to function organically, and then you progress through whatever tier before. Like, I don't think you literally live as every organism. Maybe some organisms are on the same level, so then you
Yeah.
jump through levels
So,
to learn how
to
live.
I think a good moral principle that I've taken away from Jesus. I'm really high on the concept of Jesus, just as a human construct, like how to be a human, right? He never wanted to be a leader. He never, at least according to the Bible, never wanted the kind of power and influence that comes with people believing in your way of life.
Well, that's the whole thing about him riding in on a donkey, was he purposely didn't do it on a horse because he wanted to not, he didn't want to look majestic or whatever
Right.
you want to say. He's riding in on a donkey.
Whether you believe in the mysticism of the Bible, or I shouldn't even call it mysticism, whether you believe in the Bible or not, in general, Jesus was a good guy. He was a good human being upon which you could model your life off of and
Oh, yeah.
probably live a pretty profitable life.
Yeah, for sure.
But as it comes to other humans, and the reason why they aren't God is because the minute they achieve power, they relish in it. They believe that their way of life and their way of thinking is the right way because they've been exalted to the position to make decisions. And that's where the differences in moral principle between cultures comes from. It's like, who has the ability to affect change on the idea of what is good?
Who sets the ethics of a society?
Well, hold on.
Exactly.
You just mentioned culture there, and it makes me think of just going to a different place, such as, well, for sake of conversation, like we just referred to, Germany or Japan, or you want to go to Indonesia, or, I mean, my parents went to Brazil when they were around our age, and things were totally different there. I mean, you almost have to be wary of how you're behaving or the things you do because in some cultures, looking people in the eyes is frowned upon, which is crazy to us.
Mm-hmm.
Because in my mind, I think I look at someone in the eyes to show them a sign of respect. But some people are, don't look me in the eyes. That's disrespectful. So there's this whole subjectivism on just even right there, what's doing good and what's not, just based on where you're located.
Yes.
When you narrow it down to manners, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's completely a culture thing. You
Yeah.
have to research the culture of that place you're going before you before you go there, or else you're
Oh,
going
yeah.
to offend people.
Definitely.
Americans don't research typically. That's why we're stupid Americans
That's
when
just
it comes
ignorance
to
at that point.
going out into an international area,
I
or
wanna
just
say-
out of the country.
I want to say it's amazing how many people hate us. I want to say, wow, I can't believe how many people hate us as tourists. But then you guys say exactly what you were just saying. And then I think about the general American and I'm like, oh my gosh. I can't imagine.
Yeah, it feels bad, man.
You have to
He's
do your
American.
homework on that culture.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of places, if you even attempt to speak their native tongue, they're already like 100% more welcoming to you because they're like, hey, you gave it a shot.
And
I can speak English. I'm not going to make you struggle through my language.
And
but
unfortunately, we are so uptight about that here. Is
yeah,
if you don't speak English,
go home.
If you don't
right?
speak English,
there's
go
no
home.
there
That's
is
the whole
no
mentality.
national language in America.
No, and it frustrates me because, wow, we're getting off on a whole thing.
Yeah,
But-
it's
but-
related, so it's fine.
I'd like to say generally, if you go to a new country, try to speak their language. But also, some people are here for other circumstances and they haven't had the time to learn our language. So just have some patience. And even if they're never going to learn it, for example, Kathleen's mother doesn't really know English. But I don't care because I can communicate with her with very simple things and it doesn't matter because even if I couldn't communicate with her at all, she knows an entirely different language than I do. So who's better? No one.
It's not as black and white as either you can fully communicate and understand another person or you don't even bother to make an attempt. It's do your best to show respect
Yes.
towards another human being, and that will be sufficient.
Dude, this gets me so angry is when people are like, wow, listen to his accent. He's so bad. He can't even speak English. I'm thinking,
Dude.
man, he knows an entire other language, and chances are you don't. So who's the dummy here now? Because he can speak fluently, he or she can speak fluently in another language and are butchering English, but you can't even speak a lick of anything else. That just gets me angry.
There's also there's so much beauty in other languages. Like I've
I'm
always
pretty
been
sure-
enamored by the poetry.
Yeah,
Of-
every language other than English is beautiful, but
Absolutely.
the English language is fucking disgusting.
The
I
English
think-
language is just garbage out of the mouth.
In relation to anime, like I really don't typically like to watch anime in English because the direct Japanese to English translation sounds really corny. But it's because animes are written in such a poetic and dramatic way that when it's said in an English accent, it just kind of loses the integrity and it just sounds silly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds kind of corny, and that's I just some people like it because it's a direct translation and they're getting exactly what they want, but I prefer things to be vanilla and original to what the intent was
Yeah.
with whatever that is.
No, I definitely agree.
So sort of looping it back here, I had mentioned ignorance, right? When dealing with cultures other than your own, if you're ignorant to their culture, you're doing a bad thing, right? You could go there and some stupid example, you stick up your thumb, right, to say good job, like a thumbs up.
That thing. Yeah,
Right.
some people are like, whoa, that's like quote
Yeah,
unquote the
yeah.
middle finger to them.
Or you
Right.
never used your left hand because
Right,
your
right,
left hand
because
was seen
that's-
as
yeah, it's-
like a tool that you use for dirty things, such as
Yes.
wiping your butt. Sucks to be a lefty.
If you don't know about these things in other cultures, you're ignorant to them, you will offend people. You will do wrong inside of their societal scope,
Hmm.
and that's your own fault.
Because
If
you're
you didn't
quote,
take the
unquote, doing
time-
bad, as far as
Right.
their perspective is right. I see your point, too.
Subjectively, it's subjective.
To a certain degree, I
Yeah.
feel like if that is the circumstance and you are in a different culture, it's also up to that person to have the patience with you to say, okay, this person's giving it their best effort, but they just don't know everything, so I'm just going to help them out in the best way that I can.
Yes,
Yeah.
but also you can't blame the person
Right.
rooted in that society to have the patience with somebody that hasn't even looked up what their society is called.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you go to India and you don't know that people are called Indian, then an Indian person can't be expected to be patient with somebody that doesn't even know who they are or what their culture
Right.
is.
There are fine points, and then there are clear-cut, hey,
Yes, yeah.
you need to do your due diligence with studying and researching
Yes,
a
yeah.
culture before you jump into it.
Hold on, you just mentioned India, and then that
James
made me
did.
think. Yeah, then that made me think of right livelihood, and then it made me think of Buddhism.
Yes, that's kind of where I was going with it.
Oh, okay, go. Yeah, no,
No,
you can something
no,
off
no,
that.
no, no. I was just trying to segue into Buddhism.
Okay, yeah. Well, yeah, because yeah, I don't know. Well, the whole right livelihood, right? It's this whole idea of just you're
Just a note, real quick. Not all Indians are Buddhists.
right.
Actually,
right,
most
right, right,
Indians
right.
are not Buddhist.
Yes.
But it was established in
India made
northeastern
me think
India.
of Buddha.
So that's,
sorry,
yeah.
it made me think of Buddhism, right?
Okay,
But
yeah. Right livelihood, right livelihood.
because not all Americans have a certain religion, right? Exactly.
Well, no religion was founded in America, except for
Right,
maybe
right,
some
right.
Native American. Well, actually, they're
The
not
Mormons.
even Native American.
Well, we're gonna
Can't
get
forget
off.
the Church of Latter-day
Indigenous
Saints.
All right.
people. Okay, all right. Well, that's not a
That's
religion. That's a
whoa,
cult.
whoa, whoa!
That's
That's a top 10 world religion.
I
No,
know,
no,
it's
no,
a cult.
But hold on. I'm not even gonna say anything on that because my views on what a religion is.
But here's
are
the thing:
so
Mormons never did any.
Don't-
What did Mormons do to you?
Don't
Mormons
listen.
took multiple wives, and that's not okay.
Way back
you
in the day.
I am
That's-
joking,
that's not-
obviously.
that's
I
not
would
a
love
core-
to have 3 wives.
That's not a core belief of Mormonism now. That was just Brigham Young getting
yeah.
frisky back in
Yeah,
the
Man,
day.
fair
listen,
And
I
again,
don't
you just-
respect Utah as a state, so I can't respect Mormonism.
Oh, we just lost all
All
of
right,
our
listen,
Mormon
listen,
viewers.
listen.
They're gone.
I'm putting an end to this.
So, speaking of India, Northeast India, right? Northeast India is where Buddhism was founded.
Yes.
I
Buddhism.
believe so.
Yeah.
Was it northeast?
I
It's
believe
definitely in the
Northwest.
north. It was in India where Buddhism was
was it-
developed, and
Let's-
Yes, it was
let's
definitely like
just say
northern border.
northern India.
Yeah,
the
northern.
contemporary
India
practice of Buddhism.
is not in India. That's more about like, Tibet.
But
But
Buddhism
but-
originated in northern India.
there's this contemporary philosophy that derives from Buddhism called right livelihood. And this is the belief that the best work situation is one that does not involve lying, dishonesty, or harming other people or the planet.
I like that last part. The planet.
The planet, right?
Don't
Just-
harm the planet.
and I think there, it doesn't necessarily mean global warming, like littering, which in a sense it does, but it also means just the overall well-being of everybody on this earth.
Because I want to say one thing. I don't remember where I heard this from, but it was kind of one of those things that is so trivially true that when you hear it, you think of, why didn't I ever think of that? It was this idea that we are from the planet, so respect the planet. Because we
Yes.
are the planet.
Yes. Yeah. I was listening to Duncan Trussell's podcast. Amazing
Duncan
podcast.
Trussell. Duncan Trussell's great.
Duncan Trussell Family Hour, great podcast. Anyway, he had a guest on, and his guest was saying he's a stand-up comedian. The guest was, I think it was Pete Holmes. Could be wrong there. But he was saying he likes to remind people that we're just on a planet. You've parked your car on a planet. You're living on this planet. We're all just on a planet. So relating it to right livelihood and talking about other people or the planet, I think it more relates to the United States shouldn't launch nuclear weapons because that would harm everybody.
Everybody.
Right? It's this utilitarian point of view where we need the best thing for everyone. I think that's really what the planet means in that situation. And yes, it absolutely means respect the environment,
Right.
be good to the planet, because that is one of the most important things in this day and age that we can be doing. But when we get down to right livelihood, just sort of back to the My Big Toe and Thomas Campbell saying, just express unconditional love to people. Be kind to each other, and you'll feel like you're living right.
Dude, really, ever since I adopted that mindset of just trying to... Because, again, it's one of those things that's just so trivially true that you think you do it.
True.
Trivially true. It's so easily
It takes
true.
you thinking about it
Right, because
to
then...
really understand it.
Right,
You
'cause
don't even have to think about it.
But-
It just...
But
Well-
then it's like, once
well, but
it's
that's the
showed to
thing.
you, you're just like, oh,
Yeah.
why...
You don't have to think about it, but once you think about it, then you can actually understand it.
Because you're consciously thinking
Right.
about it.
It's this innate thing in
Right.
the back of your mind,
Because-
but once it's brought forward, you realize it.
Because generally speaking, all societies, again, generally speaking, promote this idea of be good to people.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
generally speaking, all societies have this philosophy of treat other people well, do good to other people, do good to other people. But when you consciously adopt that in your day-to-day life, that's the thing, is it becomes
It's something you have to wake up and remind yourself.
right, because
And
it's
remind yourself throughout the day.
correct. It's so hard to forget, and
It's so easy to forget.
sorry, that's what I mean. It's so hard to remember. It's so
Yes.
easy to forget.
Yeah.
Is this thing of today I was getting groceries at Redner's and I was having issues with the register and there was all this stuff happening and the worker, she's this 50-something woman, potentially older, who has no idea how to solve my issue.
But because ageism, she has to keep her job.
Right. But no,
not-
but
yeah.
but my initial reaction could be, "Oh my gosh, she has no idea what she's doing. I need help
that's-
now."
Sort of stoicism,
I-
too.
Right. And
Right,
yes, because I then thought I didn't even go there. My first initial reaction is, "Oh, this is fine. I don't
Right.
have it anywhere to be." She is taking her time to fix my issue, and then she calls another worker over and helps, and there are these two wonderful women helping me with my problem, and then they go over and do something else after I'm finished ringing up, and I could have just left, but I looked over for a minute and I said, "Thank you, ladies, for your assistance. Have a nice day." Because why not? They helped
Yeah.
me. They helped
It's
me
an easy
with my
thing
issues.
you can do that will make them feel better, even if it's in the short term.
Correct.
They probably, after 15 minutes, might not remember you.
Right.
Or at the end of their shift, maybe they do remember you, but tomorrow they won't.
Right.
But that doesn't matter.
I don't think
Yeah.
you don't need a drastic degree of doing good to realize the innate feelings that you get from doing
Right.
good.
Correct.
Right.
You could do something as simple as just holding a door for someone and telling them, taking it a little step further and saying, "Have a nice day,"
Yeah.
instead of just saying you're welcome after they say thank you.
Yeah.
Say, "Have a nice day." Or
Yeah.
I actually...
Well, what were you thinking just now? Because I know you were
Yeah,
looking
you had
something
pulled
else
up
up.
Wikipedia
on
on
Buddhism.
Oh.
That's what I was interested to see what you were
little
thinking.
boy that was
Yeah, so I'll talk about that later because it has nothing to do with doing good. In fact, it's evil, but...
Well,
Well, that
Go
directly
ahead.
relates to doing good.
Because it's doing the opposite.
exact
Okay.
opposite.
So, in Tibetan Buddhism, the Dalai Lama is the leader of the tradition. They are reincarnated continuously throughout time to lead by example, essentially. And the person who recognizes the Dalai Lama is the Panchen Lama. Now, I literally just came across this article. So in 1995, there was the 14th, or no, in 1995, the 11th Panchen Lama was recognized by the Dalai Lama. So they're codependent, but at the same time, the Dalai Lama has superiority, at least when it comes to the religion itself. So the Chinese government, in an attempt
I've heard about
to
this.
essentially subvert the tradition of reincarnation, kidnapped a 6-year-old
Yup.
who was to be the next Panchen Lama,
Yep.
and have yet, to this day, will not release him. And they fully except that they're like, yeah, we stole him.
What
We
year was
kidnapped him.
95.
This was in 95. He hasn't been
95.
seen since.
Yeah. No,
And they
yeah.
say that he's living a normal life
So this-
studying
This
college.
guy's
This is
31.
what they say, but
This guy's 31 currently.
if he's alive,
Yes.
Ugh,
Yes.
Okay, good point.
Supposedly. So they say he's just living a normal life, but yeah, they essentially just
China.
stole this guy. That's crazy.
Well, okay,
Yeah,
but hey, don't
no,
blanket
yeah.
statement.
So it's a complete.
no, China's government. China's
Yeah.
government. Okay.
I'm not saying
I
Chinese
know-
people. I'm
I
saying
know
China
you're-
as a state.
I know you're not.
So
But-
what I wanted to talk about, following up what I was saying about holding a door for people, I just saw a video yesterday about a guy talking about his experience trying to commit suicide off of the Golden State Bridge.
Golden
Was
Gate,
this in one
Golden
of the
Gate
World War
Bridge?
II
Golden Gate?
documentaries?
Is that what it is? Golden Gate?
Golden Gate Bridge.
It's kind of a joke.
So I just watched this video about this guy who attempted to commit suicide off the
That's
Golden
fine.
Gate Bridge and survived.
Whoa.
Wait a minute. I also just heard about this.
Yeah,
I think
did you
literally
watch the
today.
same video?
No. I think Jake told me about it. Or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
And
he
he-
regretted it 1 second.
He
after
immediately
jumped.
regretted it,
Yeah.
and he recalls being on the
What is
bus.
that? The View from Halfway Down or something like that?
BoJack Horseman, great Netflix series, amazing. Yeah, the last season they have The View from Halfway Down. It's an episode, and
Yeah, the whole thing that when you jump from the bridge.
yeah, The View from Halfway Down. Yeah,
Because I remember,
yeah,
I don't remember where if I read it, watched it, but there was something of this woman saying that she interviewed tons of people who jumped off bridges
And
and
survived.
survived, and
Mhm.
almost all of them
halfway
said,
down you regret it.
you jump off and you're thinking, what did I just do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So essentially, you guys are all hitting the points that I saw in the video. Is that like one, people who attempt to commit suicide and survive will
Never do it again.
never do it again
Unless-
because they will
potentially.
regret it.
Potentially,
Right.
unless they're like,
9 times out of 10. Now,
Shoot
I'm not
themselves
saying
in the
all of them
head.
will. Some will try again, and that all
Yes.
plays into
It's also mental
The
disorders.
mental- exactly.
Yeah.
the illness of the brain. But with this guy's specific example, he recalls leading up to his decision to jump off the bridge as a teenager, and he was on the bus on the bridge sobbing because he didn't want to die, he realized, but he has already committed, at least in his mind, I mean, he wasn't going to stop. He was already committed to the idea of killing himself, yet he still was conflicted because he didn't want to die. He wanted to live. But it's really tragic. But his whole point was, while he was on the bus sobbing in his hands, people pointed at him and said, "What's wrong with this guy?" Or "Get a load of this guy." And if they, in his words, would have just taken the time to say, "I know you're hurt right now, but I want you to know that it's all going to be okay," he believes that he truly would have never done it. That it could have potentially changed
And
the course of his life.
And I think
that's true.
I think you see that in movies and in TV shows. I just when you said that, I immediately remembered. I can't remember what show or movie or what it was from, but I remember
Hi, my brother. Never
it
again will
could
I ever
have
watch
been-
that
okay,
show.
It could have
for-
been because I've seen that show like fully through 2 times.
That
I
makes me
hate
sad.
to admit it.
It makes me sad.
But what's wrong in trying? At the end of the day, of
Wait,
course they
Trying
could
what?
to just comfort someone
Oh,
who's trying
okay,
for
okay, yes.
because you
Yes,
have no idea what's going through that person's mind, and maybe you recognize, oh, this person seems like they're suicidal, but the chances
And
are
this-
you have no idea.
This
Well-
pulls it back to Thomas Campbell, My Big Toe, unconditional love at all times,
Can I?
right? Towards
and maybe
everybody,
maybe
even
can
people
I,
you don't know.
can I just finish this? So maybe your intent is, I'm going to console this person, and maybe no matter what you try, they get off that bus and jump off the bridge.
Yeah, but you tried.
But wrapping it all up, going back to the idea of intent and doing good, you tried. And
Right, because
That-
even if the
Their
result
actions
is
are not your fault.
yeah, because the
Even
result
if you
was
don't
that they did
talk,
it.
even
but-
if you don't talk to them and try to console them, that's still not your fault.
you've still messed with the path that they're on. You are disrupting the flat line that is their suicide. You are at least diverting it to some extent to the point where maybe they just break off of that probability
But I will
and
say, in
don't
most
commit suicide.
instances, you don't know that they're going to commit suicide.
Exactly.
So
Should almost operate under
that's-
the assumption that they are. If
Like,
they're
everyone.
clearly about, if
I
they're like standing on the bridge about to commit suicide.
According to what my big toe, Thomas Campbell, said about unconditional love, and what you're saying now, what I'm taking away is you should always assume everybody is going to commit suicide, and you should always try to show as much love as you can to that person to prevent them from doing that.
I get where you're going with that. Is like
Now, not
always
everybody's
assume
gonna
that
commit
everyone's
suicide.
broken and that
Right.
they could always.
Maybe
Just always express love to everybody
Right.
because you don't know if they need it or not. And it's better for them to have it than to not. And it's better for you to give it than to not.
there's only benefit from showing love. Maybe
Right.
it's not the benefit of saving a life, but nonetheless, there is either a tiny or a large benefit to showing unconditional love towards each other.
This just kind of hurts to talk about. Just because I know there are definitely people who have gone further than I did with it, because for me it was just repetitive thoughts. But I remember frequently bringing it up to certain people in my life that I was not having this life. I wasn't wanting to do it anymore. And one of my good friends was over, and James and I were, the three of us were together, and I ended up falling asleep, and they stayed up for, I don't even know, till about 2:30 a.m. just talking, and she ended up breaking down to James, talking to him about how concerned she was with my mental health. Yeah, and her crying to, just her crying to you about how concerned she was for my mental state and where I was at, because I would always constantly tell her of the things I was struggling with and how much I just didn't want to live. It talking about this kind of brings me back to that thought process. And I want to say it makes me sad, but if anything, it makes me feel joyful, because I think about the fact that I didn't decide to take physical action with it. I didn't drive on a bus to a bridge. I didn't get a gun. I didn't act on it. But my mindset has totally shifted. And it's kind of this thing where I really wish a lot of these people who unfortunately get to that point that they decide to take action would just take more time to make their decision. Because if they really wanted to end it, you have your whole life to decide that. And I know that it's sort of this thing where, well, I've decided now, and I want to do it now because I don't want to keep living. That's the whole point. Mm-hmm. But give yourself time. Because I'm so glad I didn't get past the point of excessive thought into action. Because that's rough. A lot of people deal with that.
Yeah. You were there for me too at my darkest hour, and it all happened so fast. I can honestly say that while I've struggled with suicidal ideation plenty of times in the past, for some reason this one night I just couldn't get over it, and standing on a rooftop, just calling a couple people, crying my eyes out. Phil, you answered the call, and I really don't know if I was going to do it, but that was the closest I've ever gotten to actually doing it, and you stopped it. So I can't thank you enough for that. In some ways, you saved my life, and you put me on a better path, because after that is when I really started digging within my soul and trying to uncover the pain that I felt.
Wow. I kind of had an inkling when I was on the phone with you that was the situation, but it was never entirely confirmed until now. I remember getting off the phone with you, and I looked over to who I was with, and I said to them, I think Derek was about to jump off a building.
Yeah. I was standing on the edge of my roof at my old house in Philadelphia. I had been drinking and taking substances that night, so I wasn't in a good frame of mind to begin with. And a lot of it was me denying the things that I needed to take care of in my life, but in general, I just felt like I didn't want to live anymore. And all I can say to anyone feeling that way is you matter and are loved by people in your life.
Suicide is a permanent solution to temporary problems.
Yeah, but I'm not even. It's so hard not to be cliche when it comes to talking about not committing suicide, but the truth, the undeniable truth, is that you are loved by someone and you mean something to someone, and without your existence in this world, their life would never be the same, and it would cause so much pain for people. And there's the same people that it would cause pain for, you have the opportunity to experience an incredible positive journey with them.
Yeah.
As friends, as maybe a partner, or maybe a family member. There are so many things that you could experience with them that would make life worth living that you just need to uncover. So
You just think about how many people struggle with things like that. I mean, it sort of goes back to what you were saying earlier, is just doing good, or like both of you said, doing good to everyone.
Unconditional love.
It can't hurt because you have the assumption that they can always use it. Because in my mind, anyone at any point always can always use support and love.
Absolutely.
And that idea that they feel taken care of.
And anyone at any point in life can make a monumental change within their life that would ultimately set them on a path towards a profitable and happy life.
Yeah, I mean, because it goes back to something as silly and simple as thanking your waitress or thanking the worker who helps you figure out a register issue. It's you don't know what that person's going through. Maybe they did go home, and maybe not, but maybe they did go home and thought about, wow, there are good people out there. That person dealt with my lack of understanding and my quote-unquote incompetence in the situation, and they still showed me thanks and appreciation. It can't hurt to just do good. And whatever doing good means to you, I don't know.
One time, later at night, I was stopped outside of my business school by a woman who was asking me if I could buy her some alternative milk so that her children could have some sort of like substance because they're lactose intolerant and they couldn't drink regular milk. And of course, I didn't know this person. I didn't ever see her before in my life. I never talked to her. She was a complete stranger. But the look in her eyes and the things that she was telling me, whether true or not, just made me want to help. So we went to 3 different 7-Elevens within like pretty much a 4-block radius, and none of them had alternative milks. And at the end, I apologized to her, and I was sorry that I had taken her on this journey to find milk for a fruitless attempt. And I thought about it too. There were places that I could have gone that I should have gone to where I could have gotten them the milk, but I really tried my best.
Again, it's the intent.
Right. And that felt good, but it still hurt that I couldn't get the desired result that I wanted.
Yeah.
To know that at least her kids were safe, and just keep trying is my best advice to anyone. Sometimes you'll try to do good and it'll seem like I got nothing in return. Maybe you even got less in return. Maybe you got screwed over.
Kill your best friend's dog.
Maybe you kill your best friend's dog by accident.
You just tried to throw a birthday party and you ended up killing your friend's dog.
But don't give up on that premises. Keep going, and eventually you will be rewarded for the fruits of your labor.
I really hate to end on a solemn note like this, but I think it's also the best time to end.
Because
And-
there's so much positivity in it.
Absolutely.
Is we feel the sorrow of what happens when you don't reach out to people.
Mm-hmm.
Had you not reached out to that woman to attempt to help her, had I not answered your call, had anything happened anywhere to anyone, that just one little moment can
That's all it
shift
takes.
everything.
That's all it takes.
That's all it takes.
I don't think it's just to again wrap it up the whole conversation. I don't think that we are trying to be these happy pushers that are just really pushing for happiness just for the sake of our own pride or our own egos. We want people to experience happiness as
Yeah.
they define it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why I've been
Yes.
saying all along.
Yes.
Morality is subjective. Do whatever makes you happy.
That helps other people. That just benefits.
Yeah.
Just do things selflessly.
Yes. I think to wrap it up, our premises here
Premises.
have been doing good can mean doing good deeds, such as pulling somebody out of a burning car or helping somebody off of a ledge
Or opening a door.
or opening a door. But it can
Someone.
also mean just expressing unconditional love to those around you.
Shit. To say it, I love both of you. I really do.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that we're doing this, and I
Absolutely.
hope that anyone out there listening understands that and
I love
appreciates. This
both
is all
of
for
you.
love.
Mm-hmm.
And I love all of our listeners. Yeah. Yeah.
It's all for love. It's all for love.